through the first month of the season, Hilton adds another spice to it. He adds another piece that you don't really have. I mean, Jelani Watkins feels like he's the next guy that could do this. He's obviously young and not quite ready for the responsibility of it, or you would have seen him through the first couple of games. If you can get Hilton back, he's ready to go from a mental standpoint. He's taken that stride. Physically, if you can keep him healthy and on the field, he brings something that LSU offensively just does not have, and LSU right now is producing offensively at a very high clip. Here to help us talk about it is the insider from The Advocate and NOLA.com who covers the program, reports on the program. Make sure and follow his work at WH_Alexander_ on social media, and you can find him at and read his work at NOLA.com and The Advocate. Every Wednesday here, we talk to Wilson. Wilson, good morning. How are you? Yes, outdoor Wilson.
Hey guys,
great to see you, Wilson. All right, latest is up on Chris Hilton. Hilton has been a little bit of a curiosity here for LSU this season on when and where he would make an impact. What did you learn in writing your latest piece?
Well, just that, it seemed to get a return. And, Chris was warming up before the UCLA game, and though he didn't play in that game, obviously that was a sign of progress. And Brian Kelly said this week that they think that this will actually finally be the week where they get him back. And as you said just there, that this could add another dimension to their offense. Even though Garrett Nussmeier is great, it still seems like, they are 9 of 20. Nussmeier is on passes more than 20 yards downfield this season. We know it's not because he's lacking for arm talent. So if Chris Hilton can get back onto the field this weekend, it might be able to give them a little bit of a boost. And I'm going to work on this internet connection right here. Sorry, go ahead. No,
we're good. We're good. Is there a big push to get him this week, or would they like to take one more week? Because if you miss this week, you get 2 to get him right, and seemingly he should be fine if he does not play and goes to the bye for Ole Miss. What's the importance of this weekend, I guess, is my question.
Well, the importance of this weekend is kind of letting him get his feet under them. He's still mid weeks really, because it has sort of week of preseason camp there. It was like a week before the first game, I think, or so, where that happens. So it's been out. But the importance of getting him on the field this week is just to get his legs underneath him a little bit, help him kind of get back into the mix of things, because you'd like him to probably have a little bit of game action before you go into just practice. Obviously, he's a guy who has a few.
Wilson, hold that thought. Hold that thought, Wilson. Hold that thought. Hold that thought, Wilson. We're moving this. We're moving this to a phone call. Hold that thought. We're going to call you right now, Lloyd. I'm going to send you his number, and Lloyd is going to call you on the phone because we want to hear what Wilson has to say, and we will get this lined up for you. Sorry about that. Obviously, Wilson's internet there was a little shoddy.
Great shot, though.
It was a great shot.
Where is he?
I don't
is that
know.
Baton Rouge?
That's a good question. Maybe he's
boots on the ground in South Alabama.
Yeah, maybe I was about to say maybe he's in Birmingham. All right, give me 1 minute. We'll come right back. Let me get this straight. Sorry about this.
That's okay. He's here.
Yeah, we're good.
We to go back to him.
We're good.
It looks like it's moving better.
Really?
Yeah.
Let's try it one more time before we call.
Okay.
Did that mess you up over there?
Yeah, all good.
Buddy, we're going to try this one more time. How you feeling about that internet connection?
Is this any better?
It's awesome.
It's so much better.
It's awesome. Where are you? Because it's beautiful right now.
Where are you?
It looks like you're in the Caribbean.
I wish. I'm in Houston.
Okay.
Yes. With cancer treatment stuff going on. So I'm on the 35th floor of an apartment in Houston.
Wow. Well, it's blue skies out there.
It is bad.
All right, they're playing their first game without Harold Perkins. What do you anticipate?
I anticipate them probably going back to the 4-2-5, or maybe just kind of going back and forth between that and the 3 linebacker looks, with Major Burns at the star and Wes Weeks getting some playing time. It'll be interesting to see if Xavier Atkins actually does get in the game at all, with Brian Kelly saying he might get activated. Because the thing about linebacker, one of the things without linebacker now, without Harold, is just the depth takes a hit. You got those 3 veteran guys or so with Penn and the Weeks brothers, and then after that, it's 3 freshmen. And none of them have played a defensive snap. And so, is this the kind of game where LSU can maybe start to get one of them into the mix, or because otherwise you're talking about throwing somebody out there potentially this season in the middle of SEC play, and other folks have done that before, but you got to be ready for that, and that's a tall ask. It's not an easy thing to do, and so it'll be interesting to see if he gets on the field at all. But otherwise, I think that you're probably going to go back to this 4-2-5 most of the time, because the 4-3 with the 3 linebackers, as Brian Kelly said, was really advantageous against run-heavy teams. And South Alabama is going to be one of those with Fluff Bothwell. So the 4-3 may be likely in this game for that reason. But moving forward, you're also going to play a lot of teams that are going to try to spread you out, starting with Ole Miss. You still got to be able to stop the run against Ole Miss. That's a big part of what they do. But it's still something where I feel like maybe start to go back to that 4-2-5. But then you got to figure out safety. You got to bring another safety onto the field, and that's been a position that's been a kind of a weakness thus far.
When you look at this defense, obviously, in the defensive backfield, Zy Alexander came back last week. He got knocked out of the game. He was a guy that they were obviously trying to put into a rotation there. Who are some of the faces that you anticipate seeing this week?
At cornerback there without Zy, let's see. It would be, J.K. Johnson, I think, is probably going to be the one who gets the start opposite of Ashton Stamps, because he kind of came in right after Zy got hurt and played most of the game. Ended up having the second most snaps at cornerback behind Ashton Stamps. He's been getting a good bit of playing time over the last few weeks, first kind of on a rotational basis and then filling in for Zy. P.J. Woodland only got a few snaps. Javian Taviano came in for 1 snap, and that was more as like the nickel or the star after Harold got hurt. It doesn't seem like anybody else is necessarily a huge part of that rotation right now. Jair Brown is kind of coming in as your slot corner, not really somebody on the outside of things. And so I think that JK and then PJ as well would probably get the most of the playing time there. That's just kind of what they did there in the UCLA game.
Last time out, we saw Garrett Nussmeier play one of his most dominant games. Brian Kelly awarded him with the game ball. Following it, he orchestrated 2 90-yard drives that ended up in scoring and touchdowns. I feel like I ask you this every week, but Nussmeier's continuing to play at such a high level.
He really is. I mean, he's got, I think, he leads the nation in completions at the moment with 113. It's the most for an LSU quarterback through 4 games ever. And I was thinking about this as we were watching, Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels on Monday Night Football, about how, how much obviously the quarterback position has changed at LSU, but also about how we really shouldn't take Garrett Nussmeier for granted and what he's doing right now, because I feel like that could be something that we as viewers do a little bit, because we've seen such high level quarterback play now over the last 5 or 6 years. But Garrett's kind of continuing on that sort of same path, is it really high level quarterback play. To go and lead an offense on those 2 90-plus yard drives. And, that's not even the first time he's done that. Remember, that against Wisconsin, 98-yard drive to go and win the game there in the fourth quarter. He's done this a few times now. And it's something that is a really, really positive, thing for him to be able to do that, because it shows you that he doesn't get too far ahead of himself on the drive. He's not trying to do too much in those moments. Kind of takes what the defense gives him, keeps moving the ball downfield, first down. And then, he's able to take shots when they're there, or again, the case of the check down to Caden Durham, someone's able to make a big play there for a 35-yard touchdown. And so he's leading this offense really well. There's some things that he can continue to clean up. There's some moments where just throws that are kind of a little off here and there, some inaccuracies. But, I mean, he's completing he's completing over 70% of his passes at the moment. And so he's doing a fantastic job of guiding this offense. And like we kind of were talking about at the top with Chris Hilton coming back, then maybe they can continue to even stretch the ball downfield, because we, again, know the arm talent is there. They just haven't been able to connect on a lot of those deep shots yet. But, gosh, the ones that they have, like the one with Aaron Anderson down the sideline against South Carolina and then Kyle Parker this past weekend, those are some beautiful balls thrown by Garrett Nussmeier.
I'm not sure he could have handed the ball to Kyle Parker any more accurate than he threw that thing. I mean, it was – you had to try and drop it. I don't know if he could have dropped that pass. What'd you make of the running back rotation?
It was kind of surprising. I mean, just because we saw Caden Durham have such a good game against South Carolina, and then, Josh Williams ends up being kind of the bell cow in this game. And Josh played pretty well. I mean, he had, I think it was 13 carries for 62 yards and a touchdown. It seemed like he was moving piles forward a little bit more than he had the first few weeks, breaking a couple tackles, really running pretty hard. So I can understand, not necessarily like going away completely from him. in this game because he was playing all right, but it was still surprising not to see Caden Durham really make an impact until that catch out of the backfield. And he showed you once again what he can do when he gets the ball in his hands. And so it just feels like he needs to continue to be a bigger part of this rotation moving forward. But even Caleb Jackson, I mean, it was kind of like in the second half of a game that they were up by 2 scores on, but he started showing something I felt like in that UCLA game that we hadn't seen so far this season. He was being a little bit shiftier. He was breaking some tackles. He was running with a little bit more power, the kind that we're used to seeing from last year. So I felt like he kind of showed some things. It wasn't like a huge day, obviously, but showed a few things that were a little bit more encouraging than what he had done so far this season. And so if they can start to get him going a little bit too, then you really got like a 3-man rotation here that you feel pretty good about. But it just seems like Caden Durham, every time he touches the ball, something good happens so far, and it feels like he just needs to continue to be a little bit bigger part of the mix.
Agreed. One thing that has been a little bit better than I think anticipated has been the special teams. Wilson, what are your thoughts on where they've had their woes against South Carolina? Obviously, they had the block punt and some things go wrong there, but all in all, through the first month of the season, I would say the punting especially has been better than I thought it would be going into the year.
Yeah, those guys need to get a lot of credit because I think all of us, I know I did, was talked a lot about preseason concern with the punters. Based on what we had seen in camp, it was really shaky, it was inconsistent, and they have not caused an issue yet. Has it been like elite punting, all SEC punting? No, not necessarily, but it hasn't been, hasn't lost LSU games really. You talk about the blocked punt, but that was something that LSU really refuted, and so maybe you don't necessarily make that as much of an issue moving forward. There was the bad snap, but Slade Roy's been so consistent for the last 3 years that I kind of gave him a pass a little bit on that one. Sort of like, okay, that was one blip in a career that's been fine. And so, then there's like obviously like the Damian Ramos thing at the end of the half against Nichols, but again, like it was just sort of a miscommunication thing. In terms of like execution, they've generally been really good. And Xavion Thomas, all of a sudden you don't have to like hold your breath when LSU's catching, trying to return a punt because he's, he doesn't call a fair catch in moments when you think he's going to, and you're like, oh gosh, but he's been so reliable, making sure the ball gets caught and then picking up extra yardage. He's been great. And then, the other person is Aaron Burrell. I mean, the freshman, I think it's kind of an underrated thing, but when he's been on the field, like it's just like an automatic touchback. The only time that he has not kicked a touchback this year was after the 15-yard penalty against USC. They backed him up. So, I mean,
Fighting the internet. Wilson, we made it 15 minutes. It was glorious, my friend. Tons of good information in there. Tell your lady we're praying. Keep fighting, and we will talk next week. There is Wilson Alexander checking in from Houston, Texas this morning. We appreciate him. Keep Wilson and his family in your prayers as they continue to fight to get better, which they will. We appreciate him for checking in this morning. Remember our conversation.